just go ultra ASMR on this one. Make it as tingly as possible. So we can see if I can beat this chess school computer before you fall asleep. So this is the talking chess computer, co-signed by Karpov himself, the 12th world champion. Let's open it and take a look. So here we have the contents. This is a very nice product. It actually comes with a book, a Karpov Chess School, where you can learn a lot of strategy. The book has a lot of puzzles and exercises that you can actually do on the board. So this is because this chess computer is meant to be educational, and it's actually a very good deal. You can get this used for next to nothing. I think I paid the equivalent of $20 for this. Here we have the actual chess computer, and it also comes, of course, with some pieces very nicely. Let's set up the board. Okay, I hope you can see what's going on. So we will turn on the computer. I can see it's displaying the last move of the last game that somebody played against this. And we'll see a new game, and it's ready to start here. And let's choose the level. So for some reason this machine has 72 levels. Maybe it's because Karpov didn't get to play Fischer for the World Championship, which Fischer won in 1972. I don't know why. We're going to play level 71. So just one level below the max level, and that's only because at the max level, at 72, the computer has an unlimited time to think. So the video could be 3 days long. So here it should be limited to a couple of minutes for each moves, maybe up to 5 minutes if it's a very critical move. And let's press move here to get this started, and it plays d2 to d4. So what are we going to play against this? Let's start out with a theoretical knight f6, and we can see the computer responds immediately, meaning that it is in its opening book, and it is going from b1 to c3. So that's a bit of an unusual way of playing the position, but it is in the opening book. So since the computer did not play c4, I think I can now play pawn to d5, and we now see the computer respond with c1 to g5 immediately. So it's c1, so it's c1 to g5 here with an attack on my knight. I don't know this opening at all. I guess we could just play something very simple like pawn on e7 to e6, like so. So the computer won't be able to double my pawns. I can recapture with the queen here. And yeah, the computer is now thinking. So this is the first move that has not been pre-programmed into the machine. So now the little chip, little chip inside the machine here is calculating computer with modern chess software, but they were pretty smart, and they are still pretty smart about designing these machines. So even with the very limited CPU power that they have, they can make some decent moves. Where they struggle in particular is in the end game. So maybe we will try to be like Jose Raúl Capablanca, the famous world champion, the supreme gentleman of chess, who became world champion by beating Lasker in 1927. And Capablanca was famous for going for the end game from the very first move of the game of chess. He played the opening, he played in order to get to the middle game he wanted, and he played that middle game in order to get to the end game he wanted. So it's very reminiscent of players like Karpov, who has signed this computer, co-signed the computer, and of course today Magnus Carlsen and a guy like Kramnik as well, who just played on these small incremental advantages until they got to the end of the game, and in the end of the game they would have some teeny tiny small advantage. One pawn would be slightly better placed, their king would be slightly better placed, more active than their opponent, and they would hold that advantage. And Magnus does this to this day. Own the advantage, just pressure the advantage for up to 20 moves or even more in order to convert it into a full point and a win. And we may try to play like that, just incremental advantages, because what we shouldn't do against a computer is we shouldn't try something too tactical if we are not very sure that it will work. And that is because even only calculating, let's say it calculates 10,000 positions per minute, so let's say it takes maybe 3-4 minutes, 30,000-40,000 positions, which sounds like a lot but not really. It may not see all the long-term ideas, but any sort of 1 move, 2 move, 3 move tactical sequence, it will in all likelihood spot. So we should be very careful if it looks like it's making a mistake that is fairly obvious, then there probably is some trick hidden beneath it. And if you're confused about the math there, if you're thinking, wait, isn't 40,000 position, isn't that a lot? Well, let's do a little bit of math here. How many legal moves does the computer have here? This pawn can go here or here, so that's 2, and then 4 for this one, 6 for this one, and 8. This pawn and this pawn can't move, but then we have 10 and 12. Now the bishop can capture, so that would be 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. The rook can move 20, 21, and the queen can move 22 and 23, and the king can move 24. So 24 legal moves for the computer. So it's calculating, has to look at 24 possibilities, 24 options to come up with its first move. But then of course it has to think about, what would I do in that situation, and how many moves do I have available? Well, I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and actually the computer has 26, 26, because I forgot to count this now. So now we have to multiply 26 by 29 or thereabouts. And let's just make it easy for ourselves. Let's just say it has 20 and I have 20, so we multiply those together. That's 400. And this is being very conservative. We have even more legal moves, but we are being conservative, and it's still 400 for calculating one move from the computer and one move from me. Let's then consider what the computer could then do. So we have maybe 20 legal moves again. 400 times 20, that's 8,000, and let's just do a times 20 again. That is 160,000 different positions for just white moving, black moving, white moving, and black moving. So just two ply deep. Okay, let's see what the computer comes up with. It plays G1 to F3, so it very sensibly develops this knight. And in this position, I think I will play this rather slowly. I don't think I will spend too much time really. I think I want to prevent this knight from coming here, and in order to do that, I think, well, I'm not even sure I can do that, to be honest, because I was thinking a move like this, but the problem is if the knight comes here, I can't capture it, because if I try to capture it, it will recapture like this, and oops, this knight can't move because of the pin to the queen. So already we do see that the machine is setting up some traps. Okay, so how can we get further into the game? One thing I think I would like to try would be to play c7 to c5 to challenge the center here. Simply because white hasn't played c2 to c4, so I think this is my way of trying to get some kind of advantage. So now the machine is thinking again. If the machine captures my pawn, well, that's absolutely okay. I can recapture with the bishop. If it doesn't, and for instance plays the knight in here, then I think I can just capture the pawn, because queen takes, and then developing my knight should be pretty good, right? So I'm guessing that the computer will play either pawn to e3 or pawn to e4. Pawn to e4 looks like it could be winning a pawn, although I'm not sure, because if pawn takes and then knight takes, and then I would probably have to defend my knight, and then they could capture here. But I think the knight takes knight, so maybe it will play pawn to e4, then pawn takes to prevent this horrible pin, and so pawn takes, then knight takes, and then probably I have to go here, and then the knight, either pawn takes pawn, or probably even better, just knight takes pawn. So I'm not completely sure, but I think pawn to e3 is not the move. I think maybe we are already in a bit of trouble if the computer comes up with the move pawn to e4. If it does, we will have to be very, very, very careful. And let's look at some alternatives. Let's say pawn to e4 is coming here. Could we, for instance, play a move like pawn takes pawn? Is this possible? Let's say that the machine advances like this. We can't move the knight. If we capture their knight, and they will capture our knight, and maybe we are just about getting out, we can recapture here. The bishop will have to move, and we can then capture here. So maybe we are lucky that that pawn to e4 does not work for the machine. So let's say pawn to e4. Maybe we should consider all these checks as well. So let's say pawn takes pawn. Does flicking in this check do anything? I don't know that it does. We could try to just block with the bishop. It's a little bit more forcing than blocking in any other way. So let's say this pawn advances. I think it's pretty much the same going on. Knight, pawn takes, knight, pawn takes, and pawn takes, with the threat on the bishop. And I don't think bishop takes bishop, knight on b takes does anything really. So I am not entirely sure at this moment what the machine will play, but I think the idea of pawn takes pawn could be very relevant, trying to refute a move like pawn to e4. If the machine cannot play pawn to e4, then I am not all that concerned. Because if the machine has to play a move like pawn to e3 here, then maybe I can just play like pawn takes pawn, and that should be kind of fine, maybe. Or yeah, even something else could be something we could consider there. So we do have a move, and we just see pawn from e2 to e3. And at this point, I am thinking that maybe a move like knight coming here could be pretty good. I actually kind of like that move. Doesn't seem like there is too many problems with that. So let's play b8 to c6. The machine is thinking, and I would say at this point in the opening, we are pretty happy we didn't fall into any sort of early trap, early gambit. We didn't allow the game to get very tactical. see f1 to b5. So we see, interestingly, the bishop coming out with a pin on this knight. So this knight cannot move because it's pinned to the king. So I'm not sure if I feel that is too much of a problem. Maybe the computer wants to play something like knight coming here and get the Pillsbury knight. I think that could be a pretty good idea for the computer. I could consider playing something like pawn to a6, forcing bishop takes knight, pawn takes. And if the knight comes in, I can play queen c7 to protect my pawn. Computer maybe plays pawn to f4 to get the Pillsbury knight. But I could start chopping away at the center there, so that's one option I like quite a bit. I could also consider just breaking this pin here, but at any moment this bishop could be forced to move again by pawn takes pawn, and the bishop would have to then move again, and I would have lost a tempo. So I think I will try this a7 to a6, and yeah, let me just send small thank you to the watchers of this channel. That means you as well. I hope that you are super okay. We got a super quick reply, but let me finish this first. I just hope you're super duper relaxed, and that you have a great amount of tingles. And yeah, as well, special thanks to the patrons of this channel who help me keep the lights on here in the studio. Particularly, that means a lot. And these days, when the channel is not doing that well, it happens with some regularity that there is a big dip in viewership, and that means that it can be very hard to pay the rent. So thank you so much for contributing and keeping this going. Now let's take a look. It plays a b5, takes c6, so it plays bishop takes c6. It says that black is in check. We will then recapture with our bishop, or with our pawn. So we have now won the bishop pair. So generally the knights and the bishops are considered to be equally strong, and but the bishops, the better you get at chess, the higher the value of the bishops is, like the standard wisdom at least. And I think that me having this light squared bishop gives me more control over the light squares in the position, which would be very nice for the endgame. Now I want to just use one little feature right now. This chess computer has something that's a bit unique for these kind of chess computers. It can tell you the evaluation, what it thinks of the position. So if you press this button here, it will say that it means that white actually has a pretty significant advantage. 100 is the equivalent of one pawn, and so this is 144, so the machine feels that it is up about one pawn and a half, and it plays e1 to g1, so it castles, and h1 to f1, the machine castles here, and it feels that it has a very good position, which I think it's pretty surprising, to be honest. I don't think that the machine is in such a good spot, but maybe I am misevaluating this completely. I will go with my plan of capturing here in the center. c5 takes d4. So I got this pawn here, and the machine can recapture in 3 ways: with the knight, with the pawn, or with the queen. The queen is not very likely, so it recaptures with the pawn here. So we are at even material, but I like my position very much. Now I can finally move this bishop here. So we're playing positionally, not losing a tempo with this bishop. f8 to e7, like so. Okay, so now this knight is more free to move, and we have the bishop pair. We have a pretty solid structure. We do have this backwards pawn, but I'm not sure. I feel that it's such a big problem. One plan the computer could try out would be something like knight coming here with the intention of maybe coming here. Let's see what it comes up with. f3 to e5. Okay, so the machine jumps into the position, which is something we did have. We have thought about this option a little bit, and the knight is attacking this pawn, and my plan was pretty simply to just defend it with the queen coming from d8 to c7. And I'm not particularly afraid of any tricks with, for instance, bishop coming here. That doesn't look to be doing all that much. I am now mostly looking to castle and play this game very slowly, like Carlsen, Karpov, and Capablanca. They all had these names: Carlsen, Karpov, Capablanca. Oh, so what do we have here? f1 to e1. So the rook is centralized. Isn't that the move? It is playing f1 to e1. Yes. So it's just playing a solid positional chess, which is actually quite impressive, I would say. I think this move does not come with any great threat to our position, so I think we can just castle. The king castles here, and the rook jumps over, and now we have exited the first part of the opening stage. The battlefield has been drawn up. We sort of know the map of the battlefield now, and any sort of battlefield will have certain advantages to some strategies and certain disadvantages to other strategies, and this particular setup is disadvantageous to my light squared bishop. You see, it does not have interesting. It's voluntarily giving up a knight for a bishop, meaning that after this recapture, I will have the bishop pair, meaning that any potential endgames are now quite a bit better for me, and as well I may even be threatening to play something like pawn coming to c5 here, pawn to c5, 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 and the idea would be to try to undermine this knight. The pawn can't capture because we capture the knight in that case, and we see a2 to a4. So that move, I believe, is pretty bad. I believe that move doesn't do anything all that meaningful, and I will start to advance my c-pawn here, maybe already trying to push a little bit of advantage here, because this c-pawn was one of the big problems for my bishop. Now we have one pawn that has left the light squares. Maybe this bishop can now come to b7, where it will be stronger, and I'm not sure what the point of pawn to a4 would even be. So let's see what it comes up with. It plays e5 to f3. So I think what's going on here is that the machine wants to protect this with the knight here as well. So let's see if we have a forcing line possible here. Let's say we take and they recapture with the knight, and we try to kick the knight, and the knight let's say it goes back here. Would we then be able to just put this bishop here and have an extremely nice center? Maybe not, because knight takes here, bishop takes, queen takes on c2, getting a little bit complicated. So let's consider our options. The queen is here. Okay, so let's get back into the game here. We could I don't think the machine is really threatening anything in particular, so we could consider playing the rook to b8. With just a small attack on this pawn here, and just improving the rook just a tiny bit. I think I like that idea, and we're trying to exploit that the computer doesn't have any very productive moves. So let's insert this a1 to b8 here, and I'm guessing we will see something like pawn to b3, or maybe even rook to b1. Something pretty simple. We do see b2 to b3 being played. So now maybe this knight knight is a little bit loose. It's not protected, which makes me really want to play pawn takes pawn, because knight takes and then maybe queen coming somewhere to attack. Now wait a minute, if I just capture this, then I have a huge advantage. Because, am I missing something here? I think pawn just takes here, opens up an attack on the knight. So I think the computer missed something here, or maybe I did, but it looks, I've been playing this so safe, so I'm not sure. H2, C3 to A2. Okay, so the knight just moves out of the way to A2. Is this because that I can't really save this pawn now? But I feel I can save the pawn. I could play this move that looks like a real killer. That looks very, very strong, I think. Opening up the bishop, doing all sorts of mischief here. So I think we are advancing this, and if you would look at this just extremely strong center we got going on here, with this knight being very badly placed here. It doesn't have any active squares. It can't go here because of the rook, can't go here because of the pawn, so it would have to go here in order to get into the game here, and it can't even do that because we would fork it like that. We now have something like pretty close to a winning advantage. And we see, what do we see? We see D1 to E2, so the queen is coming here, and they are trying to gang up on this pawn here. But I think we can defend it like so. So we have 1, 2, and 3 attackers on the pawn, but we have 1, 2, and 3 defenders of the pawn as well. And now we have a plan of coming here with this bishop to pin this knight and maybe advance this pawn as well, trying to cash in some advantage and maybe win even before we get to the end game. So let's consider what the computer could possibly play. It plays A2 to D1. Okay, so it plays a sensible move, gets the rook into play, and actually this is quite clever, because the rook is actually threatening to capture here. Because if I recapture, then queen takes here. Oops, that's checkmate. Let me show that. If takes, then queen takes here is checkmate. So never underestimate the computer. Always try to keep your focus. We have our rook here. Okay. Can we? I think actually that move is very, very good. It's very, very this move, the knight can't capture this pawn, of course. So I think this is sort of the weird line the computer has calculated to justify giving up this pawn here earlier. But I feel we should still be in a very good spot. Let's say we play this and the rook does capture here. What then if we capture here? If queen takes, then we are winning. We just take the rook, and there are no rook takes because rook takes, and so it would have to be pawn takes. In that case, we can't capture the rook, but we would have. Well, they would be. Let's see here. Let's say they do play pawn takes, so we can't capture the rook. In this position, I will have damaged the pawn structure, but I'm not sure I see any like very good moves. What about advancing this? This does threaten the rook, but rook takes pawn here is now a problem. So okay. Computer is clever. Let's think more about this. Maybe. Well, actually, this is tough. What about playing this move? The knight can come in and capture. That's we don't like that. What if we play this move? The knight could capture here, and it's still not really what we want. What if we play something like bishop coming here? I think this is the crucial moment. We have to find a way to maintain our advantage here. In this position, we can both see rook takes and knight takes on d4. So it seems to be the same problem all the time. Something takes here, which I will explain in just a minute. So this is the position. I play c8 to g4. Now, it can see that the whole thing doesn't work, and because it's one move further in the position, then it can see one move further down the line and see, okay, actually rook takes on d4 does not work because of this queen to c3 idea. So it plays a very humble move, rook coming here, and I think we are now just winning because we can play. Oh, actually no. I was hoping we could play this, but we are not really threatening to capture the knight, unfortunately, because rook queen takes. We still have this back rank issue, but it still should be pretty good, I would say. So we just advance this pawn, and we are not really threatening to capture the knight because of our back rank issue, but we will consider playing h7 to h6, or maybe even better, queen coming to c6 or d7, where it would protect the square as well. So we do see h2 to h3. also just retreat. It advances. No, I think bishop takes on f3 here should be quite good, because it will have to recapture with the pawn, and that will leave it very, very vulnerable. So it does play g2, takes on f3, like so. Still, we can't capture here, and this is of course under attack. But I have now what I believe is a very strong plan. I want to put my queen here. That means that it will be hard for these pieces to come over and help the queen, or then put the king. I mean, I would put my bishop here and try to go for some sort of checkmating attack like this. So I am playing c7 to f4 here. This also help defend this pawn center, but as you can see, we are playing positionally. They say it's good to control the center in chess, and you can see we have focused very much on these pawns here in the center. So we see f3 takes on e4, and I am considering not even recapturing. I am considering to pretty simply play this bishop here, because we would be threatening some checkmate here, but they could advance this pawn and defend the checkmating idea. So I will not, after all, play the bishop move. I will instead continue being very, very patient. I will capture like this. And now I believe we are threatening moves such as pawn coming to d3 with an attack on the knight and the queen at the same time. So we see e2 to a6. Okay, so we see the computer regaining the pawn finally, but what was the cost? I think the cost has been tremendous, and I think that now this move is very, very strong, because this move is no longer defending checkmate. Of course, we are not exactly threatening checkmate, but it should be quite close. Here, check moves, and something like this in that position. So I think after this move, bishop coming here should be very good. f6 to e5 is even better with the queen all the way over here offside, which I think is a very anti-positional move by the computer. Computer now took the queen way out of the action, and you can see with my control of the center, very hard to get back. It's trapped in enemy territory, and I am honing in, I'm zooming in, I'm putting the king into the sniper's view here, and it's playing c1 to b1, okay, but it is not really defending against this check here, and it goes to position, I can capture this pawn with check. Let's say I played this check, goes here, check, takes, check. And if knight takes, I may have some discovered check, but this is more complicated than necessary. So we have this pawn here, we have the position here, we played this check and the king is here, so we can pick up this pawn with check, and the computer may have to actually go here, and we can check here. So I think we are getting close. We capture the pawn on h3, that is check. We are now even on material. No, we're up material again, I mean. And more importantly, much more importantly, we do have this raging attack going on against the Black Majesty, and it plays f1 to g1. And I think we now should be very, very close to winning, because we can have this check forcing this move. Yes, and then check forcing this move, check forcing this move, and then we capture here with checkmate. So so that would be checkmate in 1, 2, 3, 4 moves. So let's see if we are correct. We throw this check. There is only a single legal move as far as I can see, so it's pretty interesting. The computer is calculating all that much, and it goes to h1. We then play h1 to g3, which is check, and the computer will have to go to g1. We then advance to h2 with a check, and f1 to c1 to f1. So I'd be interested if I press the score here. What does it say? It just say that I am completely winning. Okay, so I will play h2, takes on f2, and then the machine displays 0, 1, meaning that black won the game. So we won the game, and I think this was a pretty nice game. I think that we really came out with some sound positional ideas. We dominated the center with pawns. We exploited the horizon effect a little bit. The computer had an idea to win back a pawn with this whole trick with capturing on d4 and the back rank mate, but we found the critical queen to c3 to refute the idea, and then the final nail in the coffin was when the computer greedily came and captured this pawn here on a6, which simply, you can see the queen all alone out here. That's not a way to treat a queen, you know, and not if you want her to protection. No, if you want the queen to protection, you must treat the queen with respect. It's very important. So thank you, Cup of Chess School. I had a great time playing with you, and I'm looking forward to check out more of your exercises and all the different cool stuff you can do. And thank you to you. I hope you are fast asleep, or that you had a great relaxing time. I hope I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much. very